Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to have a quick discussion on authenticity and vulnerability. Now, they're not the same thing, but they're very much related. And this comes about from my work with people who have a fear and are nervous around public speaking, and they might muck up and they might make a mistake. And what if someone discovers they're nervous and, hey, I might even be an imposter? So I want to talk to you about authenticity and vulnerability as it relates to public speaking, presenting, training, getting on stage in front of a group of people. So Peter Dew is my name. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. And it's my pleasure today to share my passion, my ideas, my knowledge with you to help you elevate your effectiveness the next time you should do public speaking or training. Familiar faces on the webinar, maybe one or two new ones, but how to participate, ask questions as we go. You've got control of your microphones, open up, interrupt, or there is a chat box going as well. So ongoing comments are also valuable. And as we go, take notes, bearing in mind, don't be too focused on notes. You can have a recording of this webinar should you want. And the question is, think and apply it to your own circumstances, because we're all different in our journey around public speaking. Is there anything you might change, adapt, or include to make you more authentic? Is there anything that you might do and reveal in the future around your vulnerability that you think may help you as a presenter or public speaker? And of course, participate with the questions in the chat box. So let's start with some definition. What is authenticity? Authenticity is, it's about that you act in a way that shows your true self, your authentic self, and how you feel. It's not about faking it. It's not about a performance. It's not about, a polished plum-in mouth. On the other side, it's rather than showing people only a particular side of yourself, you genuinely express who you are 100%. Now, in my view, public speaking and training is not a performance. And your audiences, those of you on this webinar, will pick if I'm fake, or if I elevate something, or if I do something that's not aligned with who I really am, who you might see. And you may have been to my workshop in the past and you might think, hang on, that is not aligned, or that's not the authentic Peter Dew. I was reading today's West Australian newspaper, and it's AC/DC, also known as Akadaka, and they're releasing a new album. Now, Angus Young is older than me. Now, Angus Young on stage, he adopts that persona of a schoolboy, and he jumps up and down and he's bouncing around and he's full of energy. Angus Young in real life is an introvert, is very quiet, very shy, and shuns and stays away from the limelight. That's performance and the real Angus Young. Public speaking, I don't think you can do that. And authenticity is who you are on stage, is who you are off stage. Vulnerability. Vulnerability is consciously choosing, making a choice to not hide your mistakes, your shortcomings, your emotions, your weaknesses, your self-doubt, your imposter syndrome when you're speaking or presenting. So vulnerability is sharing some of that stuff that shows that we're not perfect, sharing some of that stuff that we are a little bit afraid to sometimes. And of course, some of you on the webinar know that I am a person who stutters. And I'd love to be able to do workshops and conference speaking. I'd love to be able to get on stage and not wing it, but speak 100%. fluent. And my fluency is really good for a person who stutters, don't get me wrong, but I need to reveal my vulnerability because I never know when that stutter, that block, that hesitation may happen because of being a person who stutters. And yeah, I'd love to be able to not stutter and try and hide it, but it is part of who I am. And so I reveal that vulnerability. So there's a couple of definitions for you. Why be more authentic in public speaking when you're presenting in your workshops? Why? Why be more authentic? There's several reasons. First reason is that honesty matters. People want information that they can rely on. You're not a used car salesman generally. You're helping people with a problem. If you work in mental health, if you work in disability, if you're working in the mining sector, safety, you want to get people home in one piece. If you're working in the accounting, finance, you want people to, grow their wealth, minimize their tax. There's a book that I've been a fan of for a long time, The Leadership Challenge, Kouzes and Posner. Every 5 years they do the same survey and have done for, well, could be 30 years now, but I think this is about 20 years, and I've read the 25 years of survey around the world, big businesses, and they found the number one trait in Australia, the number one trait that workers admire in their leaders, their bosses, their managers, the number one trait is honesty. In Japan, it's knowledge, experience, respect of the elders. So those are knowledge and experience in Japan trump honesty. In Australia, Australian workers, Australian people like honesty in their leaders. So as a speaker, being authentic, being honest matters. It helps you to be genuine, to be the real you. And Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. So that genuine, honest, authentic you is what people want to see. And I used the reverse position of Angus Young and AC/DC. Who you are on stage is who you need to be off stage. I remember flying to Melbourne. I look forward to flying to Melbourne again when I can. I remember flying to Melbourne, sitting next to someone, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a speaker." And he said, "Oh, so what are you going to Melbourne for?" "I'm speaking at a conference. I'm speaking at a financial planners conference." And he said, "Oh, I'm going to that conference. I'm going to make sure I go to your presentation." Now, this person has spent 4 hours with me on the aeroplane. Yeah, we've had a little bit of a chat. Yeah, we've, read the magazines, watched the movie, but we've had a bit of a chat and kind of got to know each other. And he's interested in me. He's now coming to my presentation at the conference he coincidentally is flying to see, and he's decided to go to my session. If who he sat with for 4 hours and who I present on stage are not the same person, then I'm going to suffer in terms of my authenticity. When you run workshops, people go back. Morning, afternoon tea, I've just come back from Port Hedland. Morning, afternoon tea, they chat to me, they ask me questions. Lunch break, some people stay back and, ask me further questions. So it's important that I'm genuine in both circumstances. And that helps with your consistency. Consistency of message builds trust. Inconsistency of message leads to distrust. Being one person on stage and being another person off stage, people are not likely to buy your message. Angus Young is extrovert on stage, AC/DC, but he's introvert and quiet off stage. But he's an entertainer. He's not educating, influencing, asking you to change, asking you to follow him. This is where the consistency of who you are, your consistent and authentic self, what you say, walk the talk, helps with the message. There's the story about the time management guru who starts his workshop, arrives 10 minutes late. Oh, sorry, the traffic was really bad. Everyone else is in the room ready, and the time management guru starts 10 minutes late. Yeah, his ability to, I guess, sell his message as a time guru may have just been diluted a little bit. And it builds trust. So it builds trust. It helps build trust with the speaker, the trainer, and the audience. I'm going to pause for a moment. Any other reasons, Jane, Peter, why you might be more authentic? Why authenticity will add value to you as a speaker or trainer? Any comments in the chat box? Open up your microphone. Jane.
Wow. I think it's more influential.
You'll be more influential?
Yes.
Yep. All right, Jane, you are really quiet. So
Sorry, I'll try and turn up.
That's better.
Is it?
Yeah. So being more influential, and I do a workshop. I've just run 2 workshops on the art and science of influence in the workplace. And one of the things is consistency of message. One of the ways of influencing people is to be consistent in that message, on topic, in your behavior, in your message. And yeah, that helps you influence people. Inconsistency breeds distrust. Inauthenticity, someone who's not authentic, and you can pick a fake, is less likely to be influential. Peter?
I think it's difficult in situations where perhaps you're not as you don't feel as confident about the content.
Yes.
I think when you feel confident about the content, that's when you can feel authentic and genuine and be authentic and genuine. But I've just had a recent experience where there was part of the presentation that I did feel confident about, but there was also part that I was required to present that I didn't feel confident about. And I think I now realise where I probably wasn't as authentic as I could have been.
In terms of not feeling confident about the content, was that it was new material, new content, or was it that the message that you had to present, you weren't 100% congruent, 100% aligned with the message? In other words, you weren't sure if, yeah, this really was the right message.
No, I was fairly, well, no, actually, because it was new content to me, and not
Yes.
not my field of expertise.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if I was delivering the right message.
Yep. And I've just come back from the mining sector, and some people get promoted and they're in a job for 2 weeks, and then external stakeholders, so other contractors who supply resources to and support to Rio and BHP and Chevron, for example, they expect this new person who's just been promoted to supervisor to be across everything, and that's a hard situation. So my recommendation is that don't beat yourself up. If you find, especially if head office, HR sends you down a new policy, can you bring this up and let everyone know the change at Monday morning staff meeting? And you've got the HR policy Friday and you're presenting on Monday morning staff meeting, and you really, it's new content. So this is where vulnerability may help as well. So thanks for those comments and questions. So why be more vulnerable? And as I mentioned, vulnerability and authenticity are kind of interrelated. The first reason is vulnerability builds credibility. So if you reveal your journey, your struggle, your uncertainty, your self-doubt, if I reveal my journey as a person who stutters from not being able to speak because of my stutter, to hiding and avoiding, to now teaching other people, that vulnerability, that uncertainty, that struggle, that journey helps me build the confidence in people that I can help them move forward. Some people, maybe radio announcers, for example, have got that beautiful, eloquent voice, the plum in the mouth, and they do a lot of public speaking training. Follow me, I'm really good at public speaking, I can help you. And they can, because they know how to get the message and the structure. But if it's to do with nerves and that uncertainty, my stutter, my vulnerability is my credibility. So in some ways, it's my strength. Helps build empathy. The leader that has always been successful, I don't think exists. So the leader that's had struggles, that's had projects that have gone pear-shaped, but have come through that, helps to build that empathy and trust. It shows courage. So being vulnerable and revealing your I guess uncertainty, your struggle, shows courage. I think there's lots of examples, but the one that I remember is Buddy Franklin, the West Australian Noongar man who plays AFL football, played for Hawthorn and now plays for Sydney Swans. At the finals, the Sydney Swans are in the finals, and Buddy Franklin, Lance Franklin, withdraws because of mental ill health issues, announces it, and gee, that takes courage. That takes courage. Many men in particular would not reveal that, and they try and hide it, and we know the consequences. And he came back and he played the next season, and he's still playing, although he has more injuries than game time. So revealing vulnerability does show the courage. And I also like to think that people are not always perfect. And if you look at the adult learning curve, I'll see if I can just get the right one here. I'm going to do a little scratchy picture. I'll go a bit fatter. I've got to draw over here, that's why. So if we have a learning curve, and this is time, this is knowledge, experience, and of course, Peter, you were thrown in the deep end just a little bit. We think that, that's what happens. Unfortunately, that is not what happens. It's more like this. It's more like this. Oops. Oops, that was a mistake. Shouldn't have done that. Oops. 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 And these bits on the way down, they're not mistakes. They're lessons. They're what we learn to get through some difficult patches in our life, in our careers, in our business. So unfortunately, we don't have that nice straight line. It is those ups and downs. And some of those downs, there's self-doubt creeps in, and the vulnerability, I think, helps demonstrate our knowledge, our credibility, our empathy, and makes us more relatable. So I'm going to open up once again. What are some other reasons that you think vulnerability might be value when speaking?
For me, it models probably what I'm asking my clients to do.
Yeah.
When I present.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think one of the great the axioms, the great sayings around leadership is never ask somebody to do something that you're not prepared or that you haven't done yourself. And and in that journey, when you're asking people to stretch, to take a leap of faith, to innovate, and with innovation, you have prototypes and you fail. So not every solution to Australia's disability, national disability insurance scheme, not everything's going to work, but having that courage to try, I think, is really important, and be vulnerable.
Yeah, Peter, what you described with that journey, the up and the down, was exactly what happened, because the presentations were a series across a period of time from August through to November. And there were times when I felt very, my confidence decreased considerably because I was uncomfortable, but I think I was basically learning.
Yes.
And, you know, you have to go through the discomfort to learn, unfortunately.
Yep.
You know, in the end, I was really proud of the presentations that I was giving. But initially that, and of course, what happened too was I learned about that content that I initially hadn't known, and became more confident with it as well.
Yep.
And I also learned to be able to say to people, I'm not this, I'm this. So I can give you this information. If you have any questions, then perhaps I can go back to the people who know about this stuff. But initially that felt like I was making myself very vulnerable. And that felt very uncomfortable.
Yep. And here's another way to reframe this, Jane, and also Peter. Your purpose for standing out there, being uncomfortable, being vulnerable, not being 100% across the new information, your purpose was, in fact, solely and 100% to help the people in the room, to give them some information, to give them some knowledge that's going to help them with the matters that you're providing information. The other thing that's really important, and today will be an example, is all that I can do, Peter, Jane, all that I can do is the best that I can. I can only give you my 100% effort, and then you may give me feedback. You may send me emails and say, oh, I wasn't expecting this, and how about this? You're way off track. And I can learn from that, and then I can weave that in the next time I run this webinar or the next time I speak about this. But on the day, all you can do is the best you can. And you will get a question that you have never had before. And you do exactly what Peter said. You take it on notice and you get back to the people with that answer. And some of you know that I had a previous life as a medical scientist working in pathology labs. And I did a fair bit of bush pathology in the country, which means I had to do everything: hematology, microbiology, biochemistry, blood banking, blood transfusion. And the doctors, the GPs in these country towns relied on me, and they thought I knew everything, and they loved me because I always had an answer. What I had was a group of specialists in Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, in Royal Perth Hospital, that I could ring up and say, hey, I've got a really funny set of results. What could this be? What further tests should we do? Half an hour later, I'd ring back to GP and he'd say, wow, Peter, you've always got the answers. No, I don't. No, I don't. It's where you go to get those answers that I think matters. So thanks for that, Peter. How to be more authentic and vulnerable. So I've got a little tool that I'm going to share with you. And in fact, before I share that tool with you, are there any risks with being vulnerable and authentic? I think authenticity, and a lot of this work comes from Brené Brown. Brené Brown, The Power of Vulnerability, and the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to lead. And the thing with being too authentic is sometimes when you move into a leadership, you need to fake it till you make it. So you need to step into and assume that role. So if you decide to play yourself down and be authentic where you are, be an Angus Young introvert, then that probably won't serve you well as you step into the leadership role. Now, great introverts do make great leaders. Introverts, they have empathy, they listen, they collaborate, they remain silent to think. Introverts make great leaders. Leadership means that you're in the spotlight. Introverts don't want to be in the spotlight. So while introverts make great leaders, they have to do something that's inauthentic. They have to put themselves forward and kind of fake it till you make it. Risk around vulnerability, you don't have to disclose everything. You know, the deep, dark secret from 10 years ago, unless it's relevant. If it's something that people can use against you, it may be better to be honest, especially if you're moving into a position of leadership. We're seeing some stuff in the media at the moment with men behaving badly in politics and, you know, being found out. I don't know. Vulnerability and being authentic in some areas will get you in trouble, but if you hide it, you're going to get found out anyhow. But for a speaker and a presenter, here's a little tool that I think will work for you. It's old, been around forever. It's called the Johari window, but I love it. John and Harry were two behavioral clinical psychologists who looked at this. Now, there is 4 quadrants, and it's relatively easy. This is the stuff that you know about me. You can see I've got no hair. I've told you I stutter. And it's known to me. It's also known to you. So this is my open public persona. Yep, it's there, it's evident. And as I reveal more of myself, you know a little bit more about me. So, by the way, I've got 3 kids, 3 adult kids. This is my hidden self. I know this, but I've decided not to reveal it to you. And as a high school kid, I did make a few mistakes that I would rather not talk about, and I choose not to disclose generally. Then there's my blind spots. So my blind spots are, you know this about me, and I don't know it about myself. And example, when I'm presenting face to face, I'll sort of pick my nose or I'll scratch my backside, my bum as I walk across stage. And you can tell me, hey, Peter, why do you pick your nose? Why do you scratch your bum when you walk? Oh, gee, I didn't know that. And the other one is when I used to do thinking, you know, my computer pose, I used to do my fingers over my mouth. And it's just my thinking pose. And I didn't know it was a problem. But people who are hard of hearing, and I had 2 librarians who lip read, as soon as I do this, they say, Peter, you go silent. Wow. What a blind spot. So the Johari window works a little bit like this. If I ask for feedback, please do give me feedback from this presentation. And welcome, Sandy, just coming to the end. If I ask for feedback, you give me some information I didn't know about myself. So when the librarians who are hard of hearing said, Peter, can you please move your fingers from your mouth when you're speaking? I need to read your lips. That was fantastic feedback. And of course, I forgot to mention that there's this other quadrant, which is you don't know it about me. I don't know it about myself. It's my untapped potential. So feedback enables me to find out more about myself that you see, you observe, and you can comment on. The other one is disclosure. When I reveal some of my vulnerability, some people don't know that I stutter, and I do quite well getting through workshops without stuttering. But when I disclose it, when I disclose my fear of public speaking, when I disclose how I avoided, how I hid all my strategies, and now I teach public speaking, this disclosure that you wouldn't know about unless I share with you some of my vulnerabilities is once again reducing that unknown to others, unknown to self, or it's put in a positive way, it's unlocking some of your untapped potential. So that's the Johari window. Ask for feedback, invite feedback into your life. You'll get a lot of information you didn't know about yourself. Be vulnerable, do some disclosure, let people know your own journey. I'm relatively new in this job. I love helping people find their voice, but I get really nervous when I speak. Don't worry about my nerves. I deal with my nerves okay. So there's the Johari window. Just wrapping up quickly, what's authenticity and vulnerability about? We've given some definitions. Why be more authentic and vulnerable? It's about giving consistency of message. It's about building trust. It's about letting people know that you've been on a journey in your vulnerability. Are there any risks? Yeah, there are a few risks. So choose your vulnerability and choose your authenticity level. Use the, not the little t there, the Johari window, and it's a really great tool. Sandy, this webinar is being recorded and you will get that, that recording and you can review. Just about to end, next webinar, recovery. What do you do if you go blank? What do you do if you completely go blank? How to recover? That's next webinar on 20th of November. Upcoming workshops, assertive communication skills is going ahead. We've cancelled a couple of workshops in Perth. Numbers are a little bit hard to fill at the moment, but the assertiveness skills workshop is going ahead should anyone be interested. You know how to reach me. I'd love your feedback. 30 minutes short, sharp, so I don't take much of your time. So I will end the webinar there. The question is, what are you going to do to be more authentic, to be more vulnerable? How are you going to use those skills the next time you train, educate, or get before a group of people? Thank you.